Welcome to Decision 2015, the Kalamazoo Mayoral Candidate Forum. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates. Today, we turn our attention to the Kalamazoo mayoral race. Today's forum was recorded Thursday, October 15th, 2015, from the studios of the Meyer Public Broadcast Center at Grand Valley State University. Now, let us begin by introducing Chris Mba of Kalamazoo. He's the challenger taking on incumbent Mayor Bobby Hopewell. Chris Mba, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
A little bit about yourself. This is the bio moment.
Oh my gosh, I hate talking about myself. A bit about myself, I guess I would have to mention the most important thing to me, which is my family. I'm a husband, I'm a father of one 2-year-old little brilliant girl, and I have one on the way. As far as my background, I was born in Nigeria. My family moved to London when I was 1.5, stayed there till 7, moved to Papua New Guinea, and then we came to Michigan because of Chuck E. Cheese. We loved it so much, and so we decided that that is the place that we would, really bunker down and lay our anchor. And so we've been in the Kalamazoo region since 2000, and I love this place. This is the place that I've lived the longest in my life. My family's here, my wife's here, my kids are here, and I'm fighting for a reason to continue keeping myself here. My work has primarily been in the areas of social justice. I study biology, so I use the social analysis biologically and see how we can create biological systems that work naturally in our environment. And so Kalamazoo is one scientific experiment for me as a strategist. In my background professionally, I've worked with groups like Michigan State Extension and 4-H and nonprofits like LISC, and I was in AmeriCorps. And from there, I created my own organization called Aviators, which is an engagement strategies firm built to connect people together with organizations, associations, businesses. How can we better connect people authentically together?
So why politics?
Politics. Unfortunately, politics is an area where we currently operate in a structure from a top-down direction and flow, and that isn't natural. And so, in order to transform communities, you can't avoid the political arena. What I've seen in Kalamazoo is that a lot of decisions are made for the people, and people relatively have very little input or say-so in the decision-making process, and I'm working towards changing that and creating a more horizontal dynamic.
All right. Well, the deficit is one of the big topics in Kalamazoo
Absolutely.
at the moment. And let's talk about that a little bit. Projections indicate Kalamazoo's deficit will rise to $2.9 million next year, with it expected to grow to an annual rate of $6 million by the year 2020. Specifically, how would you address this rising deficit? New taxes, fees, cuts to the budget departments? What's on your plate? How would you address this?
Absolutely none of that. I think we've cut a lot. We've always seen the only avenues of change to be slash and spend, right? Why not work with what we have and use it better and best and tighten our belts until we know how to master the resources we already have? We have over 390 properties that are owned by the city that are off the tax roll. We need to put those back on the open market. You can't run a business on 60% of your revenue. You have to free up the 40% that isn't working for you, and that's what Kalamazoo needs to do. 10 years ago, there was a study done by Plant Moran that said a city income tax would be to the detriment of our property owners. And why that is being brought again as a solution is beyond me, but it was shown by the same group that's that is currently at the conversation to be a solution, and they said 10 years ago that it would not, and they explained why, clearly. So I don't think that a city income tax is an option, especially not in the matter of accountability and spending that has been the culture of Kalamazoo's leadership.
So the idea of a net gain of $5.6 million, I believe Plant Moran has come up with to the general fund is not an option. On your website, you lay out a plan for reducing the local tax burden while also reversing the diminishing tax base. How would you satisfy those two approaches?
I think there has to be an analysis of the value being created with the dollars we're spending already. We don't have much evaluation. We don't have this strong culture of feedback loops and transparency. And so we have to really see how are we creating a value for each dollar being spent. Were we creating $2? Are we creating $1.50, or are we creating 50 cents of value? We really have to see how our money is being spent, and is it being spent wisely? And we have to see what areas we may have overlooked or underlooked. A lot of talk is being talked about the Department of Public Safety as one of the biggest areas that the revenue is going towards. I don't think that we need to cut our public safety department. I think we need to look at ways that we can lighten the load on city staff people and maybe bring and incorporate our residents more into the decision-making process to help our city lighten that load. And I think putting some of these city-owned properties at least 5% will help us get back in the right track.
As you explore some of these options here, social justice being your background, what can a mayor do to fight inequality? Name one thing a mayor can do to combat social and economic inequalities.
Oh my gosh, that is a great question. What I plan to do, if elected mayor, is to create an ambassador program that incorporates residents in creating a network within its community and resident base to actually end the disconnect. Inequality stems from a disconnect and divide socioeconomically. If we can create a more connected civic community that participates and sees each other as a valued asset, we can restore Kalamazoo one person at a time. But we have to find the asset and value in the people.
You mentioned Public Safety Department and its budget. What would be the approach for policing and neighborhood outreach as part of this bigger plan that you have?
Absolutely.
Changing inequality.
Absolutely. Where historically communities have usually taken care of themselves, and community policing wasn't so much enforced. I think we have deviated away from that, and in the culture of always expecting someone else to do the job for us that we can do for ourselves, public safety has been brought more to the forefront as the keeper of the peace. Well, I think if we empower our residents with the authority to be peacekeepers, the peace will be held, and public safety can relegate a lot further back into the background and take care of those real issues that they need to be focusing on.
What is one policy or approach you would promote as mayor to foster economic development and job growth in Kalamazoo?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would focus on entrepreneurship. That has been an area that I have worked into social justice and through my experience in 4-H as the first urban pilot, a site coordinator in the Kalamazoo region. And focusing on small and local, medium-sized businesses will really be the sustainable economy that Kalamazoo needs to focus on. It's not going to be the big corporations that we have always looked towards to save us. Those corporations have very little interest in our community for the long term. It's based on their profit margins, and this is how they operate. If we can focus on local business owners, people who actually have skin in the game, stake, who live in our communities, I think we can create a new economy, and I think we can have austerity.
Is there a regulation or a policy that you would repeal that would benefit the city?
Absolutely. I think repealing or working towards removing the limitations on medical marijuana dispensaries would absolutely open up and free up the ability to generate new revenue for the city.
Affordable housing?
Affordable housing.
How would you promote a greater supply of affordable housing to low-income city residents?
I think we need to focus on the barriers that are addressing, that are keeping people from affording safe environments to live in. And so competition is one. How can we force, say, landlords or property owners to pay for discrimination? And I think one of those ways is creating a more open market. As far as low-income housing, I think personally, as someone who has had experience as a low-income individual and with a family, for me, location and access to transportation has always been the biggest issue. So if we can create better access and transportation to homes and jobs, I think housing can become way more affordable in our region. Also, addressing the diminishing tax base, I think we can address the high rental issues in our community.
Much of Kalamazoo's success has come thanks to public-private partnerships. Is there another public-private partnership you think is worth exploring in the community? And if so, what is it?
Absolutely. I hope, as mayor, to create a partnership with the educational institutions in our region to address our greatest asset, the Kalamazoo River. It has been polluted for far too long. We have currently no strategies to create a cleanup effort. I think if we can create I call it a scholastic coalition within our Western Michigan University, K College, KPS, we can bring some of the brightest minds from all over the country, from all over the state to come together and create biologically sustainable methods to clean up our waterways. I think we can really attract more commerce to our region, more tourism.
30 seconds. An appeal to the voters. Why should they vote for you?
Why should you vote for me? Because Kalamazoo needs a new direction. Kalamazoo needs innovation and bold leadership. Now, I know that our community is worried. We have very serious looming issues, and they're not too familiar with me. But I want the community to know that I walk by my values, I walk by my integrity, and I love this place, and I'm fighting for a reason to stay, just like every single one of you. And so just give me a chance to talk to you, and I believe that you will see that too.
All right. Candidate Chris Imba,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we continue Decision 2015. The Kalamazoo Mayoral Candidate Forum recorded Monday, October 19th. Joining us now is incumbent Mayor Bobby Hopewell from Kalamazoo. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo, but I have ties to Grand Rapids. My dad lives here in Grand Rapids, and I have a bunch of stepbrothers and sisters up here and cousins. I'm the product of 5 children from my single mom living in Kalamazoo, and have lived there pretty much all my life. And I've served on the city commission for the last 12 years, one as commissioner, one as vice mayor, term-wise, and then 4 terms as the mayor.
4 terms as the mayor. Is there one thing, is there one accomplishment that really shines in those years for you?
Wow. There's been so much. Often I'm told what's the most important thing, and I don't know that I can key on one factor. We're doing some amazing things with our farmers market. That's one I'm excited about. We really have dove into prosperity work. We have a lot of folks that have been left behind in this economy, and really looking at opportunities in regards to entrepreneurism and really growing a business in the neighborhoods and co-ops and things of that nature. So I'm excited about a lot of things that are going on. Our downtown is booming. We have a great business technology and research park, so lots going on.
I'll rephrase.
Okay.
Is there a top priority now for you?
Yeah, right now is our financial challenge. Absolutely. We are like most core urban cities, and we have about 54% of the properties not on the tax rolls. And if you take 54% of anyone's dollars and resources, what are you going to do with that 46 that's left, and how do you deal with the challenge of not having enough to provide all the services that people expect and sometimes require?
Well, let's dig into this deficit
Sure.
issue. Projections indicate Kalamazoo's deficit will rise to $2.9 million next year, with it expected to grow to an annual rate of $6 million by the year 2020. So specifically, what are you doing? What do you want to do to address this rising deficit? New taxes, fees? What's the mix here? What are you looking
Well,
at?
there's no simple answer because we are almost at the highest millage rate you can have. So without a Headley override, you can't have any more taxes that you gain from property tax. That doesn't mean that a Headley override wouldn't be one of the opportunities, but it doesn't. We don't have much room even with the override that will give you address the challenge that we're facing. We have and are going to be able to balance the budget in 2016. Even though we have that gap, we're able to balance it and deal with the deficit in 2016 through all kinds of cuts or reductions and one-time fees that we still have available. And we've placed a revenue panel, a blue ribbon revenue panel of our citizens that are coming together trying to help navigate a path. There's no simple path. There's no easy answers, and that's why we felt we should bring community members together to help us dive into what direction we go. And many of the solutions would require a vote of the citizens. So that's the realm we're in. And of course, we're developing, we're selling off city property. We are working with a number of key developers that are planning to build and make amazing happen with their facilities and structures, and we're working as closely as we can with those folks.
You're working with the panel, but you'll take their advice, but is there something in your mind that you might pursue?
My mind is that it would be disrespectful to start sort of saying this idea, that idea, when we've asked these folks to serve. Why ask them to serve if I was going to say, well, we should do this, we should do that? I'm looking forward to the work that they do and the creativity that they take to do it. And then I'm looking forward to the discussion with all 6 other commissioners. And I believe it's going to be interesting and challenging. And we're going to have a lot of time to talk about the ideas that we want to move forward once we have some presented to us.
Now, I've been reading, catching up on this blue ribbon panel and some of the suggestions.
So you've been learning a little bit.
I
about
have
what
been
we're doing.
learning a little bit.
That's not a bad thing.
It's a great thing if you're going to conduct an
Exactly.
interview like this.
Yeah.
Income tax is one of those areas that's being explored right now. Is there talk of the income tax and gaining about $5.6 million? Is that something that you would consider?
Yeah, absolutely. I would consider it if it comes forward. But if they come up with some other great idea that's not an income tax, I'll consider that too. Have there been discussions over the 12 years that I've been on the City Commission? We certainly have talked about income taxes. We've talked about one-time millages for public safety, a number of different things. We haven't moved those forward because we were able to trim and make reductions where possible. Just in 2011, 219 people took early retirement. We recently bonded for our other defined benefits, our other benefits, medical benefits, primarily for our retirees. And we've also had retirees, some of the retirees that were willing to go into Medicare, and that's reduced our burden as well. So there's a number of all kinds of things we're going to need to consider and look at, and I'm open to all of them. But knowing that if you're talking specifically about an income tax, there are 74,000 people, or those that vote, 50,000 people in Kalamazoo that will get to decide whether that occurs or not if we move it forward.
As a politician, you know taxes, the idea of raising taxes can be a detriment.
No.
You would be comfortable with raising taxes if that's the decision?
Well, you got to keep in mind that in Kalamazoo, per our charter, if we were to have an income tax, if that was to occur, our property tax would automatically drop from the about 20 mils that it is now down to 14. So it's there's two things happening here. So it's not necessarily totally accurate to say it's a raise in property or a raise in taxes necessarily for the citizens of Kalamazoo. An income tax would allow us, similar to here in Grand Rapids, those folks that work in the city but live outside, to be able to receive revenue from them through taxation. So it's a complicated piece of work.
Are you examining consolidation of city services?
I love that. Yeah, I'm all about consolidating every service we can that is possible. I'm a paramedic by my original trade. I worked for Life EMS. One of the things we're working on is 911 dispatch in Kalamazoo, and how do we bring everyone together around this when almost every other county has it. But having worked for Life EMS for those years, they've been in Kalamazoo 25 years, they dispatch from Grand Rapids, the headquarters. There's technology that allows us to do many different things now. So do we have to build a 911 center? Could Calhoun County, could Kent County, could Allegan County handle this for us? We pay a fee, reduces cost. That's one. Detectives. Criminals don't care what border they're on. We have 5 law enforcement jurisdictions, and sometimes we're chasing the same folks. I see that as an opportunity to have one detective bureau for the county. Fire marshals. I don't think that a fire inspector in one community has any more or less knowledge than a fire inspector in another community. And then back office things like records and permitting, all those things. Let's do it all. I'm good with that.
So you would look at more partnerships with the county, or
county, the city of Portage, Kalamazoo Township. I'm missing someone. Yeah, all of them. And we are doing some things now as well. The crime lab is. We're partnering on. We're partnering on transportation now. There's a number of things, but I think there's room for more.
What can a mayor do to fight inequality? Is there one thing a mayor can do to combat social and economic inequalities?
Absolutely. I think it's about policies that you have. I think it's about creating opportunities as they exist. For example, through our economic development policies. We work with a lot of developers in building their projects and finding ways through our brownfield and others to contribute. Can we also change that a little bit when there's an idea that's in a challenged neighborhood or underrepresented populations? How do we infuse resources into those areas to help those great ideas? Because they may be the next DeVos, or they may be the next Upjohn, or whatever. We are a maker state. We have to enable that work. I think it's also collaborating with makers in the community, really trying to figure out what the needs are and how do you make sure that if you want us to invest in you, we need to invest in neighborhoods. And I'm working on a microloan program specifically for neighborhood innovation.
Talking about those neighborhoods, neighborhood safety, what changes would you make, or changes to the approach in neighborhood policing?
So here's one of the pieces that I'm working on and have been working on with our staff. We're looking at our hiring processes, trying to really hire more individuals from the community. In our last process, we hired 14 people. I was just speaking with Mayor Hartwell about this a couple weeks ago. We hired 14 people. About 8 of those folks are local folks. That doesn't mean they're all from the city, but a lot of them are, and they have ties to our city. I think that helps build better relationships when you're dealing with someone that is being a knucklehead in the community, along with an individual that has been a victim, and it truly makes you stronger because you have this ability to know each other. So I think that's one key piece of it. And then I like to remind folks that we have 22 or so officers on the road each day. So that's 44 sets of eyes. We have 74,000 citizens. It's about all of us being watchful and mindful and have expectations of each other and working together to improve safety.
Improving the city overall, economic development, job growth, private-public partnerships. Where are the values? Where do you see those partnerships happening now, and what would you like to see in the future to continue that kind of growth in Kalamazoo?
So we, as I mentioned a minute ago about our brownfield redevelopment, we have one of the best authorities in the nation that's been recognized nationally, and it's about investing in these properties that have been blighted, let go, or a lack of investment. In those investments, we're looking at tweaking our expectations of developers and how they are creating jobs. How do you go about, for example, those returnees that you have coming back home from being incarcerated? We have to find a path for them, or we know what path they're going to take. So how do we work to ban the box so you're not looking at that felony record first, but you're looking at the person and what they may bring? Everything from the microloans to investing in neighborhood entrepreneurism. One of our neighborhoods, I'm working closely with the North Side neighborhood. We're looking at all those policies. And then I think also being able to create unique partnerships around co-ops, this whole co-op movement where individuals can own a business, be a part of owning something. I think that there is a lot of movement regarding that, and we're working on it.
In the last 30 seconds,
Sure.
your final appeal to the voters.
You know, I'm honored to serve. This is my home. I do it because I love this place. And I know that you can choose anyone you want to serve. And I think we've been working hard. We have a lot of work to do. And I've been there at every step of the way. And I'm just asking for folks to consider me on November the 3rd.
Incumbent Bobby Hopewell, thank you for being here. We'd like to thank challenger Chris Mba for participating as well. And we thank you for tuning in to Decision 2015, the Kalamazoo Mayoral Candidate Forum.